Kittl has a very powerful AI image generator, and today I'm going to share with you some tips to help you get more control over your images created with Kittl and how to get better quality images using some of their features. Also, Kittl are sponsoring this video and there's a link in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. My first tip is to work faster with Turbo, and if you need to, finish with Advanced. Sometimes what you get from Turbo, it's a faster model, is not quite as high quality as the Advanced setting, but it's great for experimenting with your prompts until you find something that you like, and switching to Advanced can help you finish off what it is that you're trying to create. My next tip is to learn how to craft a better prompt, because crafting a prompt and understanding what works well is what's going to give you more control over the final image, because the AI generator is essentially looking to that prompt to figure out what it is you're after. So let's break things down a little bit. Obviously you want to start with a subject like a dog, but where would I like to see this dog? Maybe I'd like to see the dog in space. So I add that to my prompt. However, maybe there's a certain breed I want, such as a pug. So I go through and I add any visual details, anything visual I can think of to build upon what I want to see in this image. And in this case, I see a spacesuit, which I like, but I want it to be a futuristic spacesuit. Also, maybe things are a little bright. So I change things like the colors by saying dramatic muted colors. But also I don't like the portrait feel of it, so I say floating in emptiness. And to give it a little bit more grounding, maybe I want to add the earth in the background. But also I want to think, what kind of style image do I want? Like a cartoon or a painting or a photo? I'm going to say Polaroid photograph. And the more detail, the more descriptive I get with this prompt. I need to learn these phrases in order to better improve my prompt crafting and get exactly the image I'm after. My next tip is quite simple, and that's to pick your aspect ratio before you generate your image. If you don't, you might have to end up cropping and losing some quality, so make sure before you actually go in and generate your image, you'll find the aspect ratio settings there, click the one you want, and then click generate. You'd be surprised how often you might miss this one, but it's just something I thought I'd remind you about. But instead of writing your own prompt, my next tip is to steal your prompt from an existing image on Kittl. This is pretty easy to do. I come down the left menu here to Images, and where it says Photos, I move over to Kittl AI Images. And you'll notice a whole bunch of AI images here that you can look at. I can also do a search. So if I search for something like cyberpunk, I get a bunch of different results here. Let's say I like this image here. I hover over the eye and it says here the prompt, but also the style used. So I can go through and find anything. This one here looks pretty cool. I'm going to say use prompt, and it pops that prompt into my prompt bar. But if I want to change a detail, I can do that as well. So it says a futuristic cyberpunk girl. What if I said futuristic cyberpunk frog? Leave everything else the same. Hit generate. And I get this image right here. And here they are side by side for reference. You can see we get a very similar style of image, just with a different subject. But another quick tip is if you want to reference your own images that you've created in the past, head down here to uploads. And you'll see an AI generated section here that you can click on. And for one, you can reuse these uploads, or you can find the prompt, such as this one we looked at earlier. Click on the three dots, view the prompt, and you can copy that prompt and use it in your images. So you can actually go back quite easily and find your old images that you've generated, especially the ones in this project, and use them for future reference. But also familiarize yourself with the different styles of the image generator so that you can pick the right one when creating your images. So heading into our image generator here, if we scroll down, you notice we've got some styles. If I click show all, we can scroll through all of the different styles that Kittl has to offer. Now, there is a few sort of very basic ones like photography, which covers a lot, as well as things like digital art, acrylic, so things like paintings, oil painting, or retro photos. If there's a style here that matches the type of image you're after, so we've got different clip art styles here, basically you want to go through and try to experiment with those different styles, including these other different patterns. So let's take a new prompt. I've altered our cyberpunk frog to wear a trench coat deep in the city of Tokyo with neon lights and flying cars. I can scroll down and find an image style that I want to see. I'm actually going to go with synthwave here. And I'm able to generate this really cool synthwave style image. But I also experimented with retro photo and got something a little bit different again. And you can see by switching these styles, we switch how they look. So we have here the psychedelic one, which is a little more in your face, really bright and intense, but also mascot, which simplifies things and makes a cool little mascot character. But I also moved on to the cute pattern style, and we get this really cute image of a frog in a trench coat, and it looks a little bit zany. But you can also simply turn off the style and use just the generic engine without applying a style to it. And when we generate with that, what we get is a style of image that's a little bit more open to interpretation. My next tip is if you want to create something that's scalable, like a vector image, make sure you actually choose a vector style when creating your images. And back to our cyberpunk frog and our styles. You'll notice down here we've got image styles, clip art styles. These are all bitmap styles, including the pattern. But if you want to create a vector image, there is vector styles. Now these aren't just styled to look like vectors. They actually will create a vector image in black and white. I go show all, and you'll see I've got several different vector styles here to choose from. So if I choose this vintage drawing and generate with that, and then down here an image has been created. If we zoom in, you'll notice it stays consistently sharp. Even if I zoom right into the edge, everything is very precise and clean because it's a vector image. Now keep in mind, if I click on this image, I can change the illustration color over here to anything I basically want, any color in the color picker. And if I want to download this vector file, I go to download. Instead of choosing PNG or JPEG, I choose SVG or PDF, and I can download a vector copy of that image. I'm going to share a video at the end of this or in the description below, going a little bit more in depth into the vector side of using Kittl. But also, if you can't find a style that you like, you can actually upload your own straight into Kittl. So this image here is from a prompt of a warrior meditating in nature. And sure, I could expand on this prompt, but for now we'll keep it pretty simple. If we scroll down, you notice I have some saved styles here already, and I can use these because I've created them in the past. But if I want to add my own style, I click on upload. I'm going to choose this ukiyo-e picture that I found, click open. And after a moment, it pops up here. And you see it's already given it a name, woodblock. Despite the fact that's not in the file name, I've got this off unsplash.com, and I can click on the 3 dots here and rename it. But otherwise, I'm going to select this style and keep my prompt the same. I generate image, and you can see here what we've been able to create. And you see how it's used that image to reference for a style to create something very different from the original. But it doesn't end just there. Any image that you upload or use in Kittl, I have this one I created earlier. I can click on it, right click, save as image gen style, and it will create a style called steampunk based off that image. So now when I go back to my generator, type in the prompt again, a warrior meditating in nature, choose our steampunk style here and generate. Again, we get something a little unique and closer to that image style. But also learn how to prompt for style, because if you're not getting what you want out of the styles panel, you can actually use your prompt as a way of dictating what kind of style image it is you're actually looking for. If I think one of these existing styles will sort of help steer in the direction I want, I can choose those, or I can just unclick to remove the style completely. Come up to my prompt and I have a warrior meditating in nature. This time I type in comma. You can add a style like ukiyo-e woodblock painting. This could be anything. This could be watercolor painting, oil painting. It could also be in the style of ukiyo-e woodblock painting. It could also be an artist. It could be Picasso. It could be Leonardo da Vinci. Or we can even move that again. So let's remove this, cut this out, and say we'll say an ukiyo-e woodblock painting of, we say an ukiyo woodblock painting of a warrior meditating in nature. So you can put the style before the prompt and phrase it in a certain way. You can put it at the end of the prompt. Putting it at the start of the prompt will have more of an impact. But if you really want to focus on the subject, maybe pop it after the subject. So what order you put this in will affect the result you get. So let's go with an ukiyo woodblock painting of warrior meditating in nature, generate, and you can see the image we got has that style applied to it, despite the fact we haven't picked a style from the actual style picker. But also take advantage of prompt formulas to help you get a better prompt without learning all the intricacies of prompt engineering. Now, it doesn't have to be a Kittl prompt formula. It can be something for Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, DALL-E. Any prompt formula you can find will help you get more control over the images you create. Now, this is a prompt formula I've used and shared in the past. It's quite simple. I type my main subject, then the details of that subject. I then add the scene, so the background, the art or image style, lighting, and colors. So if I were to go through and modify that prompt formula, starting with my main subject, maybe I change that to something simple like a woman's face. And maybe I add some details to her face, such as blue eyes, black hair. And then for the scene, I say a busy city street. And for art and image style, maybe I say professional photo shoot, portrait. And for lighting and colors, I might say golden hour and sepia. This is a nice simple prompt formula. It gives you all of the bases and kind of prompts you for the details to include so you can get a better understanding of what to expect from your image. And this prompt generated this image using Kittl and the photography style in the AI image generator. You can find plenty of these online, but a good way to look for them is just simply go to Google and type in AI art prompt formulas. Hit search, and straight away you can see some formulas here. They've been shared on this website, some that I've shared for Midjourney. It doesn't matter what platform they're for. They're good guidelines to get you started so you can search for them in Google and try them out for yourself. Now, if you need to create multiple images in a certain style, check out the sets generator and you can actually apply a consistent style to all the images that you create. So this is a pretty cool feature. We come down to the Kittl AI section and you see here it says sets generator. I click on that and I can pick a style. I'm going to go with etching. And I can give it a few different images to generate, such as a superhero man, a magic samurai, a cat, and a sports car. I hit generate set, and after a moment you can see it's generated 4 images in that style. And I can add them all to my board, and you can see we get a nice consistent style across each image. So that's pretty handy if you want to get out a lot of stuff all at once with the same style. But also, don't stop at one image. Make sure if you're not getting what you want, retry, make adjustments, slowly tweak your prompt, keep submitting until you get what you want. Because of the nature of AI and image generation, you don't really have full control, so sometimes it takes a few submissions to really get the image you're after. So be patient and keep trying. Now, if your image is close but not quite right, don't forget you can actually edit your image using Kittl's AI tools. Now, the editor does have a few basic tools. If I click on my Polaroid here, if I wanted to say crop it and remove the Polaroid border, I can use the crop tool to crop out some of that information if I decided to. But what I really want to look at most importantly is the eraser tool. I click on the eraser, and over here I have erase and fill, and you can turn that off if you just want to erase and create a transparency. But I'm going to turn that on because what I can do is essentially select where these 2 additional earths are. If I think they're out of place there, highlight them, and the AI will replace them. And as you can see, they're now gone from the image. And on top of that, you can use that to change certain details elsewhere in the image too. So if I want to just get rid of, say, this pack here, I can even leave a little bit behind if I wanted to, say, just change it. And I can continue to make these adjustments as I go. But on top of that, if I hover over this and go to Kittl Copilot, there's a little AI section here which allows me to ask certain questions like change to or align to. If I click change to, I can say something like a cat in space. I submit. It will first offer me some pre-existing images that I can use, or I can replace with AI. So I click on that and you'll notice I get a new image based off the other one, almost like a bit of an image prompt, but I've changed it to a cat. So you can make some edits and sort of piggyback some of the images you've already got. But also, if I have the image selected and click these 3 dots, I have a bunch of other options here. I can flip it horizontal, vertical, I can use it as the background, and I can also remove the background over here. So I can make some changes to my image if I think it's close enough and I just want to remove or alter a few small areas, or simply reimagine the image, but want something similar to what I started with. And don't forget, you can also prompt for separate elements of your image. So you might prompt for the character and the background separately, prompt for certain objects, and then use Kittl's editor to bring that all together using the layer system. So to show you what I mean, I have here a portrait of a man in a business suit, vintage cartoon style. I also plan on cutting this out, so I'm going to add plain white background and generate that image. So now I have my man in a vintage cartoon style. But on top of that, I'm going to come back up, and instead of the man in the business suit, I'm going to change it to a futuristic office with robots. I'm also going to make it 16:9, so I have a little bit more background to play with. Generate again, and now I have 2 elements on the screen. I can take this office from the background, position it about where I think it'll go, come down to my layers down here. I move the original image up above the background, and then what I could do is come to the AI background remover. I click on that, and you can now see we've got a unique background with our character in front of it. So I can take this background image at any time, move it around, And then if I want to start adding in certain elements, I can do that too. So maybe I come back up and I keep the style the same, change this first text here to, say, a robot carrying a cup of coffee. I generate that image, and then we get this robot carrying a coffee. Again, I use the AI background remover, and I can position him in the artwork here. Although maybe I want him behind my main character, so I use the layers here to drag him underneath. So I can start to put the pieces together and slowly build a scene by generating elements one at a time and reordering them using layers. Also, you don't want to keep your images at too low of a resolution, so make sure you upscale the images that you want to use. So I just generated this image and it ends up being at about 1792 by 1024 pixels. So if I click on it, there's a simple AI image upscaler down here. And when I click that, it upscales and enhances the quality and brings it up to about 4096 by 2344 pixels. So a little bit over double that resolution. So that's really good if you want to work on high resolution images or presentations, designs, to get those images up there so that they look better than the original generation. Now for a little more control over your images, don't forget to prompt for color and lighting if you feel you need it to slowly dial in what it is you're after. So I have my image here, and what I'm going to do is I want to get a bit more of a blue tint and I want the light to be a little darker. So at the end I'm going to add, so I've added, if I scroll down a little bit, cold blue tint, very dark scene. I hit generate, and we get an image that has much cooler, bluer tones applied to it. I then come back, change it to something different, like, I can now scroll down, and you can see we have warm reds, oranges, and purple tones, just to sort of add something different in there. Extremely bright lighting, overexposed. And again, we get that nice warm, but also purpley bright light that we asked for. But heading back to the original, you notice we get like that nice balanced gray moon surface, red car, and the earth. And we were able to make it a lot cooler by prompting with those cool blue tints and the dark lighting. And then we cranked up the lighting to bright, added warm red, orange, and purple tones. But I also tried something different with oversaturated radioactive colors and got a very interesting image. And then in contrast again, I asked for studio lighting and muted lime and yellow colors to the image. So adding those to your prompt can definitely give you a bit more control over the final output. If you're still not quite getting the color or lighting you want, don't forget that you can use Kittl's photo filters to adjust your image and really perfect it. So if I'm not very happy with my frog image from earlier, I can click on it, and on my right panel, if I scroll down, I have here photo filter. So I can click this plus button and I have an entire range of controls I can use in order to adjust this image. First of all, I can add some noise if I want it to look a little bit noisier. I can pixelate it if I want that pixelated look, but I think what we're looking at here is mostly things like we can blur, we can shift the hue if we think it needs to go one way or the other. So if I want it to be a little more green, I just bring it that way and it kind of shifts the whole hue spectrum across. But I can also increase or decrease the brightness, the contrast. So if I want a really high contrast image, something that looks a little bit different like this, I can do that. I can also bring that saturation down, and we've basically got a really muted, almost black and white image here. So going through and adjusting all these, including the vibrance, we can really play with the overall image tone, and you'll notice that this image looks a lot different than the original that we actually had when we started. So we've been able to go from this image, which looks very good, but sort of artificial looking, to this almost sort of noir style image, something a little more dramatic and a little bit different in style. Another great tip for bringing your AI generated images to life is to combine them with real photographed elements. So back to the image of our space pup here. One thing I can do is, you can see we have the Earth here, and if I go into images, I can actually search for photos that are available for me to use. So I type in moon, and I can scroll through and find a picture of the moon that maybe I'd like to use. So maybe I choose this one here. Now keep in mind, if I have this image selected, it will want to replace it. So I click off the image, add this image of the moon. Maybe I decide I want it to go here, use my AI background remover, and now I have the moon in the scene. However, it's not really blending properly. So again, because we have layers, I can go to my blending mode here, and maybe I find something like lighten or lighter color to find something that blends in with the background a little more naturally. So I go screen, and now I have the moon in the background. I can move it around as I see fit. And like I said before, I can also go to my photo filters and adjust some things like the contrast, and get it looking a little bit more natural. I can also add other things in there. So if I go over here, type in spaceship, I can scroll through. I actually really like this photo of the astronaut. So instead of the spaceship, I'll actually add in an astronaut, cut him out, bring him into position. And again, I can use my little rotate here to pop him into position. Have him sitting out here, make my adjustments to blend him in a little bit. And I still go looking for a spaceship, maybe this one. Do the same again. I can start adding elements into the scene pretty effectively. We click off, and then we have our image. But another thing I can do is not just simply adding in those elements, but also textures. So I come down here to textures. I can create these textures overlay over the image. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, move it over. And if I want to try this first grunge texture, I can click on that, and it adds a texture over the top of the entire image. If I come down here, there's a section for texture. I can bring the opacity down if it's a little too full on. I can even change the way it blends, so soft light, hard light. I think that what we got at the moment is pretty good. And I can go through and even find a completely different texture like this one. It has a completely different effect. Maybe this time I go for overlay and something a little more subtle. And it just adds a little something to that image. And there's a whole bunch of textures here you can choose from, even this one. Again, bring that opacity up. This time I'll go from overlay. I got screen, color dodge, opacity down. So I could really have a good play and get something interesting with that particular image. And depending on the type of image you have, such as this car in the desert, what texture you choose can have a very different effect on your image. So I have some grain textures here, I have some halftone textures. I can choose one of these photocopy textures to get a very nice effect there. And again, if I want to select that, I simply click on the artboard, come down to texture, and I can adjust. And I get a nice grainy effect on that image by applying a simple texture. So that's a very powerful way to add just a little bit of realism to the images you create, as AI images can often be a little too clean. Adding a real texture can just help kind of de-hance it a little bit and make it look a little bit more organic. And don't forget, you can also prompt for the composition and layout of your image. There are certain terms you can use. There are ways you can order your prompt in order to influence where things are placed within the image that you generate, in order to take a bit more control over how things are placed within the image. You can use photography terms such as epic wide shot to get a good result. Otherwise, you can just simply dictate the angle. So you might say a side profile angle, or a low angle photo, a high angle photo, or even aerial top view to get a little bit more control over how the image is framed. Now you can see here on the left, I put in a close-up portrait. On the right, I chose full body shot. But if I come back to my Kittl AI and change this to, I have a downtown street, a man walking. I've essentially changed the order so that the downtown street is prioritized over the man walking, making this the main subject. So by changing the order of my prompt, I can change the priorities of the image. Let's hit generate. And this is what we get, a downtown street that just happens to have a man walking in it, as opposed to a man walking full body shot in a downtown street, or a close-up portrait of a man walking downtown street. Changing the order means changing the priority, which is another powerful way to take control of the layout of your images. Now, a lot of AI image generators will allow you to generate text within your image. However, I recommend using the text tool separately in Kittl to get a better result. So even if I could generate AI text on here that looked half decent, if I wanted to change it, move it, change the color, I'd be stuck with what I got, and I'm still relying on the AI to come up with the design. But I can go to my text tool over here on the left. I can just add in plain text, or even look for some kind of template to start with. So maybe I choose this metal template, and I can change the size of the text box and type in something different like Fast and Furious, add this at the top, and I've got all the same options I'd normally have on the right. So I can change the color, I can change this gradient here, I can change pieces of that to get a different color effect. I can change the font, so maybe I go from Sign Master down to Accelerator, and already I'm getting a different look. I can go through, play around with all the effects, try different things, and have more control over the final look and appearance of the text thanks to these options. So I can essentially edit this how I see fit. and I can keep on adding more text. This time I just add a normal headline. I'm going to call it 13. I'm going to make it white. I'm going to change that font again to Accelerator, change the font size. And I can just grab this and use that as well. So I can create my own little kind of movie poster here. Now the 13 is sitting in front of the Fast and Furious bit. So I want to choose this, go to my layers, drag it up, and I've solved that issue. I can start to create like a really cheesy movie poster. I can basically use this for social media. Anything I want to create, I can use my own text, type in like bodies of text by adding in a paragraph. So I can add all that in there, and I have full control of the text on the image. So rather than trying to prompt for that text, have more control, have the ability to edit it, because text is something I don't think really needs AI to work well. You've got plenty of text effects here in Kittl you can use to really take your image to the next level. So I'm just scratching the surface here. If you want to check out these features for yourself, head to Kittl. There is a link in the description. I highly recommend checking out this platform and having a play. Finally, if you want really highly scalable artwork, I recommend trying to lean more on the vector generator and also the vector art converter if you want to create images that are printed at a very large size. Now I've got a video on the screen right now that can help you with that. Otherwise, I'm also going to share this full Kittl workshop if you're really looking to learn the full gamut of Kittl skills to create images and designs online. Check that out and let me know how you go. So that's the video for today, guys. Hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a like. Otherwise, hope to see you again next time. Have a great day.